Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive, the podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it
We examine the pieces.
and expose the machinery inside. Let's dive in.
Okay, so today we're doing a really essential deep dive. It's one that I think challenges the very foundations of how a lot of us define our lives, you know, our self-worth even.
Yeah, we're talking performance culture.
Exactly. That relentless drive to optimize, to produce, to, well, succeed constantly.
And look, most takes on this just sort of chalk it up to, modern stress, life's busy, we're going deeper.
We're deeper.
We have to ask the aggressive question, the necessary one. What if this whole performance culture thing isn't just some accidental flaw in the system? What if it's actually a fully designed, self-feeding architecture?
An architecture. Designed for what, specifically?
Designed to keep you productive, perpetually productive, yes. But, and this is crucial, also perpetually insecure.
Okay, that's a heavy premise. And we have source material on this.
We do. We've got a detailed blueprint, essentially. We're doing a forensic analysis today of what the source calls the performance culture deception architecture. It breaks it down into 16 conceptual nodes.
16 nodes.
Yeah, and they all work together to enable what's termed the ultimate deception.
Right. So our mission today, what are we aiming to achieve for you listening?
It's surgical. We need to expose the specific machinery, the gears and levers, that make struggle seem moral.
That makes rest feel like a failing.
Exactly. And that ultimately ties your intrinsic worth, who you are, entirely to your output, to what you produce.
So if you feel like you're constantly running some kind of race.
We want to show you who built the track. And maybe, just maybe, why they keep moving the finish line every time you get close.
Okay, let's get into it. Part 1, the engine of worth and pain. This is the core system, right?
This is the heart of it.
The sources say we need to zero in on 3 specific nodes here first. Nodes 2, 6, and 16 as the sort of self-reinforcing core.
That's right. They form the logical engine. And we absolutely have to start with node 2. It's identified as the central piece.
Node 2, what is it?
The source calls it the suffering success equation. Simple name, incredibly insidious function. This is the ideological engine driving the whole modern hustle culture.
Okay, unpack that definition for us, though, because hard work pays off sounds, well, reasonable. This sounds like something else.
It is something else entirely. It's not just about hard work. The core assertion here, the dangerous part, is that the quality and critically the legitimacy of your work are directly proportional to the pain you endure doing it.
Proportional to the pain. So wait, if you achieve something easily, or, God forbid, you actually enjoyed the process.
According to this architecture, illegitimate, cheapened, less valuable. It's not about effort, you see. It's about performative misery.
Performative misery, wow. Like those social media posts?
Precisely. Think about it. The narratives you see everywhere. I cried every day building my business. I sacrificed everything for this promotion. I almost burned out but pushed through. The implication is, if you didn't suffer like that, did you really earn it? Did you truly deserve the success?
And that feeling that you must struggle, that's the trap.
That's the core psychological trap. The source material gives it a name. The Puritanical fallacy.
The Puritanical fallacy. Explain that.
It's confusing correlation with foundation, massively so. Look, obviously, great achievements often require intense effort, sometimes real struggle, that's true.
Sure.
But this fallacy mandates the struggle.
Yeah.
It insists the suffering must be present for the outcome to have any value. The system isn't actually rewarding the result, it's rewarding the visible self-flagellation on the way there.
Okay, I see the distinction. It's subtle, but huge.
And node 2 doesn't just pop up on its own, the architecture sets it up.
Yeah.
It's directly linked to and really enabled by node 1.
Node 1, which is?
The necessity of burning for reinvention. This one's framed as an axiom, a fundamental truth.
The necessity of burning. Like a phoenix.
Exactly like a phoenix. It's this powerful romantic idea that any truly significant personal transformation, career change, identity shift, health overhaul absolutely must involve this dramatic, fiery process. Intense suffering, confusion, hitting rock bottom that's presented as the prerequisite.
The mandatory breakdown before the breakthrough.
You got it. The narrative demands self-immolation. You have to burn your old life down to build a new one. And think about the implications. Yeah, this is why people sometimes maybe unconsciously sabotage things when they get too comfortable.
Because the system tells them real change can't happen without a crisis first.
Precisely. Stability feels illegitimate somehow, not fertile ground for transformation according to this node.
So what's the counter argument the way out of that specific trap?
The critique, and this is really the liberating part, is that this axiom just flat out romanticizes suffering needlessly.
It ignores other paths.
Completely. It ignores the very real possibility of transformation through gradual, consistent effort, through systems refinement, through incremental growth, through just focused work without the melodrama.
So if you change your habits bit by bit without some huge dramatic narrative.
The architecture whispers, did it even count? Was that real change? Was it profound enough? It demands the big story. It needs the spectacle of the burn.
Okay, so node 1 sets up the demand for pain, the burn. Node 2 then says the value of what you create is measured by that pain.
Correct. Now we bring in the psychological piece that makes individuals actually susceptible to this whole setup. That's node 6.
Node 6, the psychological hook.
The source calls it the insufficiency adaptation model. This node tries to explain why so many incredibly driven, high-achieving people buy into this system, even when it's clearly making them miserable.
Why do they? What's the model?
It suggests, quite insightfully actually, that many high performers are operating from this deep-seated belief, often formed in childhood.
Ah, the childhood connection.
Right. A belief that love, or acceptance, or maybe just basic security, is entirely contingent on what they achieve, on demonstrated, quantifiable success.
So they're not chasing goals for the goals themselves.
Well, primarily, no. They're chasing them relentlessly to prove they're worthy of acceptance, worthy of love, worthy of even existing sometimes. The drive isn't intrinsic satisfaction. It's this desperate need to compensate for an internal feeling of not enough.
That resonates. I can see how that plays out. But the source has a warning here too, doesn't it?
It does, and this is fascinating. While Node 6 is insightful, it really does explain that relentless drive, the source warns that this very insight can become a new identity trap.
How so? A trap in understanding the trap.
Sort of. If you constantly frame your current drive only as a reaction to a past wound, you risk staying focused on the wound forever. You never actually move past the need to perform.
Ah, so you swap the external pressure for an internal one? Like now the pressure is to constantly process the wound?
Exactly. You trade the performance anxiety of hitting targets for the therapeutic anxiety of healing correctly.
Yeah.
But the underlying belief that something is wrong with you that needs fixing through effort remains. You've just changed the narrative around the feeling of insufficiency, not escaped it.
You basically internalize the wound as your permanent identity.
And that prevents you from ever truly getting to the point where you recognize your worth is just there, intrinsic, regardless of your output, past or present.
Okay, let's recap this core loop then.
Right. Node 1 demands the fire, the suffering for transformation. Node 2 justifies the result, the success, by the intensity of that fire.
And Node 6 explains the psychological vulnerability, the pre-existing wound, that makes people willing to keep throwing themselves into that fire, seeking validation.
It's an elegant and, frankly, quite a vicious loop. Keeps the engine running, keeps the person insecure, keeps them chasing.
It really is. And you said earlier these aren't new ideas.
Not at all. That's where we go next. Right. These nodes, this architecture, it's incredibly effective because it's just repackaging very old, very effective control mechanisms. We need to look at the history.
Right. Part 2, contextual strikes. Taking the scalpel to the history and philosophy behind this, where do we start? Let's go back to Node 2, the moralized labor part.
Okay, so Node 2, suffering equals success. The historical parallel here is unavoidable. You have to look at Puritanical norms and, specifically, the Protestant work ethic.
Max Weber stuff. Calvinism.
Precisely. Emerging in the 16th, 17th centuries, this wasn't just about work hard. It fundamentally moralized labor.
How so? Moralized?
Work, especially difficult, arduous, dedicated, often joyless work that led to worldly success, became a sign of what Weber called worldly asceticism. And crucially, it was interpreted by some as a potential marker for spiritual salvation, proof you might be one of the elect.
So your success wasn't just economic, it was potential proof of your moral or spiritual standing.
Bingo. Labor became moral evidence. Your diligence proved your worthiness, not just to society, but potentially to God.
Wow. Okay, that's a powerful historical root. How does that connect to today beyond just the echo? What's the power analysis?
If you apply a Marxist critique here, the function of modern performance culture becomes incredibly stark. It's a phenomenal tool for labor exploitation.
How? Because it makes people drive themselves harder.
Yes, but more deeply. If the worker internally believes that their exhaustion, their burnout, their suffering is their moral worth,
Yeah.
they will self-optimize for that state. They don't need a boss breathing down their neck to work late.
They feel morally compelled to do it. It's a virtue signal to themselves.
Exactly. It's the most cost-effective form of control imaginable. Think of the savings for capital if the workforce polices its own productivity through internalized moral guilt.
So who benefits? The source names.
It points to the clear benefiting hierarchy, corporate capital obviously, the managerial class that enforces it, and the broader performance-driven state that relies on high productivity. They all benefit immensely when workers equate exhaustion with value.
It reframes exploitation as personal striving.
Perfectly put. Now let's smash this idea. We need the philosophical counterstrike. The source brings in the Eastern contradiction, Taoist wu-wei.
Wu-wei, often translated as non-action, right? But it's not quite it.
No, that translation is terrible, frankly. It's much closer to effortless action, or doing without striving.
Effortless action, how does that work?
It's the idea of being so deeply aligned with the natural principles, the flow, the Tao of a situation or system, that your actions become spontaneous, incredibly effective, and here's the key part, non-tiring.
Non-tiring, that sounds like the opposite of Node 2.
It is the direct opposite. If you're practicing wu-wei, the work flows through you. It doesn't demand suffering, it demands mastery, presence, alignment.
So if your work is done with ease, from this perspective.
It's not illegitimate. It's a sign of mastery. It completely flips the Puritanical fallacy. Ease isn't laziness. It's elegance. It's skill. It demolishes the core premise of Nodes 1 and 2.
Okay, that's a powerful contrast. Let's apply the same historical lens to Node 6, now the insufficiency adaptation, the need for external validation driving performance.
Right, this idea of tying your entire identity and worth to rigorous achievement and external validation. Again, not new. The historical parallel offered is the ancient Confucian examination system in Imperial China.
The Kiju exams.
Exactly. For centuries, success in those incredibly grueling civil service exams was pretty much the only path to status, wealth, social mobility, and a respected identity, not just for you, but for your whole family. Failure was devastating.
So immense external pressure tied directly to achievement, defining your worth.
Immense. But the modern performance architecture does something slightly different and maybe more insidious. It takes that external pressure and internalizes it.
Which brings us to Foucault.
The disciplinary society, the panopticon. Precisely. Foucault's idea of the panopticon prison design, where inmates know they could be watched at any time, so they constantly police their own behavior.
They become their own guards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the modern performance culture thrives on this internalized surveillance. You, the high performer, the optimized self, you become your own warden, constantly monitoring your metrics, your output, your efficiency, your adherence to goals, judging your own worthiness minute by minute.
Through apps, spreadsheets, habit trackers.
All of it. You are the perfect productive subject because the surveillance is built in. No external overseer needed most of the time.
You're trapped in your own self-built panopticon of productivity.
And who profits from this dynamic, this wound-focused, self-policing behavior? The source points out a really ironic, benefiting hierarchy here.
Oh.
First, the parenting industry. Think about it, selling books, courses, therapies, promising to fix the childhood deficiencies or traumas that might have created that initial insufficiency drive.
Wow, okay. And second?
Perhaps even more cynically, the massive corporate wellness complex.
The mindfulness apps, the yoga retreats, the executive coaching.
All of it. An industry that makes billions selling solutions to fix the burnout, the anxiety, the psychological wounds that the performance-driven corporate system itself actively creates and requires.
That's deeply messed up. It creates the illness, then sells the cure.
It's a perfect closed-loop economy of misery and profit. The architecture demands the burnout, then sells you a $50 candle and a weekend workshop so you can recover just enough to get back on the hamster wheel Monday morning.
Okay, this is really painting a picture of the system. Let's move to part 3, the traps of identity and social transaction. How does this architecture affect our sense of self and our relationships?
Crucially, because a system built on insecurity and individual striving can't tolerate genuine, non-transactional community. It needs competition. It needs you to see others primarily as resources or obstacles.
Which leads us into the specific social mechanics, Node 3.
Node 3, treat lower companions as social contaminants. And this is presented as a command, an obligation.
Lower companions, what does that even mean here?
It means people who aren't perceived to be vibrating at your high frequency, or who don't match your current level of ambition, output, or perceived success. The command is essentially to purge them from your social circle.
Purge them? That sounds brutal.
It is. The critique is immediate. This is ruthlessly hyper-individualistic. It reframes relationships as purely transactional networking assets, not human connections.
And the source connects this to one of the core deceptions.
Yes, deception 3. Social climbing is self-improvement. It's driven by fear, isn't it? Fear-based control. The fear of being dragged down, held back, contaminated by association with people deemed less productive or successful.
It's fundamentally isolating.
Deeply. And this toxic social command feeds right into the next one, Node 4.
Node 4, the water rises axiom. What's this one about?
This is that very popular, very seductive idea you hear everywhere in self-help. If you just focus relentlessly on your own authentic self-improvement, on becoming high value, then the right network, the elite connections, they'll just magically appear. Water finds its own level, right?
So you don't need to actively network or build community. You just need to become better, and the right people will be drawn to you.
That's the promise. Focus inward, and the external rewards, including social capital, will follow automatically.
Okay, wait, though. Isn't there some truth to that? Like, improving yourself does often lead to better opportunities and connections. Why is the source calling this out so harshly?
Because while there's a tiny kernel of truth, competence does attract attention, the axiom completely ignores systemic reality. It ignores privilege, class, race, existing power structures, inherited networks.
It assumes a perfectly level playing field, a pure social meritocracy that just doesn't exist.
Exactly. It tells you if your network isn't elite, if you're not rising, it's your fault. You just haven't worked hard enough on yourself to be worthy of those connections. It completely erases the structural barriers and advantages that shape social outcomes.
So Node 3 tells you to isolate yourself from lower connections, and Node 4 makes it your fault if the higher connections don't magically materialize. It's a perfect setup for loneliness and self-blame.
Precisely. And this systemic individualism has profound internal costs too, which brings us to the traps around identity itself. Node 5.
Node 5. Authenticity as tripartite alignment. What does that mean?
This is the command, the pervasive belief that true authenticity requires perfect, constant alignment between three things. Your internal thoughts, your spoken words, and your external actions.
Perfect alignment. Always. That sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. It turns your entire life into this constant performance of self-auditing. Are my actions perfectly reflecting my inner state right now?
Yeah.
Did what I just say truly match what I think?
And the source says this is based on a flawed assumption.
Yes, a fundamental essentialist assumption. It assumes there's a single, static, perfect, discoverable, true self, like a core object hidden inside you that you just need to find and then perfectly express.
The source calls this deception too, the authentic self treasure hunt.
Right. And the logical vulnerabilities, the fallacy of reification. We're treating an abstract, dynamic concept, the self, as if it were a concrete, fixed thing, like finding a buried treasure chest. You spend your life digging.
And who benefits from keeping us on that treasure hunt?
Well, think about it. The entire wellness industry, to a large extent. If you ever actually found and fixed this mythical, static, true self, their job is done, isn't it?
So they need to keep redefining the map, moving the treasure.
Exactly. They have a vested interest in framing the true self as perpetually elusive or newly complicated or needing constant rediscovery, ensuring you keep consuming the workshops, the books, the personality tests, the coaching, all dedicated to the search.
So what's the liberating alternative here if the self isn't a fixed object?
The crucial shift in perspective is seeing the self as process, not object. As a river, not a rock.
Like a river, flowing, changing with the landscape.
Precisely. You don't find a river in the sense of digging it up. You recognize where it is now, how it's flowing, how it's constantly adapting and changing. The demand for perfect static alignment between thoughts, words, and deeds isn't just unrealistic. It's a setup for chronic internal conflict and feelings of failure.
Okay, that makes sense. But when that pressure for perfect alignment gets too much, does the architecture offer an escape?
Oh, it offers a very convenient, very popular escape hatch. A bypass mechanism. That's Node 7, the magical bypass.
Magical bypass.
This is the benevolent universe axiom. It's the idea that if you just get your internal alignment right, Node 5, and you perform with enough earnest intensity, Nodes 1 and 2, then the cosmos itself will step in to support you.
Like the universe becomes your business partner.
Pretty much. It will rearrange itself, send you signs, synchronicities, money, opportunities, provided you're doing your part, performing your alignment rituals correctly. Think law of attraction on steroids, tied to performance.
I see this everywhere in motivational and, frankly, spiritual spaces. What's the critique?
The source labels it bluntly. Magical thinking and classic spiritual bypass culture. It's identified as deception 4, the universe as co-pilot.
Why is it a deception?
Because it wildly overstates individual agency within incredibly complex, often random or systemic realities. It makes the individual feel powerful and entitled to success, yes.
Oh, which feels good.
Of course. But it also shields them from confronting the reality of unfairness, randomness, or systemic barriers. And crucially, if you fail, it's never the system's fault or bad luck. No, it's because your alignment wasn't pure enough, your vibration wasn't high enough, your performance wasn't earnest enough.
It puts all the responsibility back on the individual, even for systemic outcomes.
Always. So what's the liberation here? If the universe isn't my co-pilot?
The source suggests embracing cosmic indifference as liberation. Indifference, that sounds bleak. How's that liberating?
Paradoxically, if the universe isn't watching, judging, and grading your every thought and effort, you're actually free.
Free from?
Free from the immense pressure of performing for God, or for capital, or for the universe itself. You get to define your own value, your own meaning, without needing celestial validation or fearing cosmic punishment for imperfect alignment. It takes the pressure off.
Okay, I can see the freedom in that, actually. Less pressure to perform perfectly for some cosmic audience.
Exactly. Now this brings us to part 4, focusing on the limiting frameworks, especially the big one, Node 16.
Node 16 is flagged as a high-priority target in the source material, right? The ultimate false binary.
It really is. This one is fundamental to how the architecture limits thinking. Node 16 is the cerebral heart dichotomy.
Head versus heart.
Yes. The system presents this as a fundamental choice you must make in how you operate, how you decide, how you live. You have to choose between the head, defined as reason, logic, analysis, the cold ego.
And the heart defined as intuition, connection, feeling, emotion.
Right. And you're constantly told you have to prioritize one over the other. Get out of your head and into your heart. Or stop being so emotional and think logically.
But don't we need both? How is forcing a choice useful?
It's not useful for you. It's useful for the system because it prevents holistic, integrated, effective functioning. It creates internal conflict. You're perpetually feeling guilty for being too analytical or too emotional. You're fighting yourself.
And the source links this to power structures, too.
Absolutely. This is where the analysis gets really sharp. The source argues this head-heart dichotomy explicitly reinforces damaging and deeply ingrained gender stereotypes.
How so?
It connects directly to Deception 5, gendered cognition, and upholds the patriarchal gender hierarchy. Think about it historically. Reason, logic, the mind, these have been coded as masculine attributes. Emotion, intuition, the heart, connection, coded as feminine.
So when the system tells certain people, maybe women predominantly in some contexts, to get out of their head and just feel.
It can often function as a command to stop critical thinking, to abandon rational analysis, which might be seen as too aggressive or unfeminine, and instead rely on more easily manipulated emotional or intuitive responses, especially in spiritual or self-help contexts that discourage questioning.
That's a really critical point. It's not just a cognitive error. It's tied to social power.
Deeply. So what's the counterstrike philosophically? The source contrasts this manufactured split. It points to the historical parallel of Cartesian dualism, Descartes' mind-body split, which laid some groundwork.
But what's the alternative? The integrated model?
The most potent contradiction offered is Stoicism.
Stoicism. Isn't that about suppressing emotion?
That's the common pop culture misunderstanding. But no, not really. Genuine Stoicism is fundamentally about reason-emotion integration.
Integration, not suppression.
Exactly. A serious Stoic doesn't aim to eliminate emotion. They aim to use reason, logic, and mindful awareness to understand, process, and ultimately utilize their emotions productively. Reason informs emotion. Emotion informs reason. They're meant to be a team.
So the goal isn't choosing head or heart.
The goal is to reject cognitive apartheid. That's the phrase the source uses. Reject the ideological separation of reason and emotion forced on you by this architecture. Insist on using your whole intelligence, analytical, emotional, intuitive. They are one system. The split only serves to weaken and control you.
Reject cognitive apartheid. I like that. Okay, let's touch on the other bafflements or limiting concepts the source mentions before we synthesize. Node 11.
Node 11 discusses toxic fuel sources. This one's tricky because it contains a kernel of truth, which makes it more dangerous.
Where's the truth and what's the trap?
The truth is that anger, resentment, envy, the desire to prove someone wrong that I'll show them energy, can be a powerful initial motivator. It can get you started.
Sure, revenge energy can be potent.
Very. But the source warns it's highly corrosive and addictive fuel. If that's all you run on, the anger or the resentment becomes the point, not the actual achievement. You get hooked on the feeling of struggle because it justifies the toxic emotion.
And that prevents you from shifting to better fuel sources.
Exactly. It keeps you stuck in a lower vibrational state, frankly. It prevents you from accessing more sustainable, fulfilling motivators like genuine curiosity, intrinsic enjoyment of the craft, or a sense of purpose beyond your own ego.
Yeah.
It's a vulnerability the system loves because it keeps you miserable, but still productive.
Okay. What about node 10?
Node 10 is the vestigial pattern bias. This is basically the cognitive bias known as the Einstellung effect, but applied specifically to success strategies.
Einstellung effect. That's getting stuck on the first solution that comes to mind.
Or in this case, getting stuck on the first strategy that worked for you. It's the tendency to cling stubbornly to formulas, habits, or approaches that brought you initial success long after the context has changed and they're no longer effective or even harmful.
Like the entrepreneur who built their startup grinding 18-hour days and now tries to run a huge company the same way.
Perfect example. That grind might have been necessary at stage one, but applying it when you need to delegate, strategize, and lead a large team is completely counterproductive. The vestigial pattern bias prevents adaptation because this is what worked before.
It locks you into outdated behaviors.
Precisely. And finally, briefly, Node 12 offers a really interesting paradox, especially for the control-obsessed performer.
Node 12, the discipline of release. That sounds counterintuitive.
It is within this architecture. The concept is that the highest form of discipline, true mastery, doesn't always manifest as tighter control, but often as the ability to strategically relinquish control.
To let go.
To trust the process you've set up, to trust your team, to trust the system you built, to know when not intervening, not micromanaging, is the more disciplined, more effective action. This directly contradicts the constant anxiety-driven need for control that permeates the rest of the performance culture architecture.
Mastery as letting go. That's a radical idea for someone caught in this system.
Utterly terrifying. For the perpetually insecure subject who feels their worth depends on constant vigilant control.
Okay. We've dissected the engine, the history, the social traps, the cognitive limits. Part 5. Let's bring it all together. Synthesis and cognitive liberation.
Right. We've taken the machine apart. Now we need to state clearly what the machine does and how to start dismantling it in your own thinking.
Let's restate that central threat then. What is the ultimate deception that all these 16 nodes work together to create and enforce?
Boiled down to its absolute core, the ultimate deception is this sentence. Your worth is contingent on your performance, and that performance must be earned through suffering.
That's it. Simple. Brutal.
Write it down. See how it operates in your life, because the sources are very clear about the function of this deception. It's not just a bad idea, it's a mechanism of control.
What are the primary outcomes it creates? For the individual and for the system.
For the system and the entities benefiting from it, this deception achieves two main things. One, it justifies self-optimization as a perpetual, never-ending project. You can never arrive, never be done, never be good enough. You must always be improving, tweaking, hacking. This guarantees lifelong consumption and labor directed at the self.
Okay. And 2?
2, it's an incredibly effective mechanism for creating perpetually insecure, highly productive subjects. If your worth is always conditional and earned through struggle, you're always running, always anxious, always working to prove something that the system itself defines as fundamentally unprovable.
Constantly chasing a moving target of worthiness.
Precisely. But the good news, the whole point of this deconstruction, is that seeing the architecture is the first step to freedom.
We can translate this analysis into an actionable way of thinking, a framework for liberation.
Yes. The source material implicitly provides this. We can call it the Cognitive Liberation Framework, built on countering the core deceptions. It has 5 main pillars, 5 counter-axioms.
Okay, pillar 1.
Recognize the architecture of control. Stop seeing the performance culture as just how things are, or a neutral playing field. Understand deeply that it's a system designed to leverage your insecurity for productivity and profit. See the design.
Pillar 2.
Reject the salvation narrative of suffering. Actively push back against nodes 1 and 2. Internalize the truth that meaningful growth and success can, and often should, happen without needless performative suffering. Success achieved with ease, joy, or efficiency is legitimate. Burnout is not a badge of honor.
Pillar 3.
Reclaim authorship of meaning and value. This counters nodes 5 and 6. Your intrinsic worth is non-negotiable. It existed before your achievements, and it exists independently of them now. Define your own metrics. And remember, yourself is a dynamic process, a river, Node 5's liberation, not some fixed treasure you need the wellness industry to help you find.
Pillar 4.
Integrate reason and emotion beyond the false binary. Reject Node 16's cognitive apartheid. Stop letting this system, including patriarchal norms, split your intelligence. Use your head and your heart. Use Stoic principles of integration. Use your entire toolkit. You are one integrated being.
And the final pillar, Pillar 5.
Choose genuine community and connection over transactional networking. Reject the toxic individualism of Nodes 3 and 4. Invest in relationships for their own sake, for support, love, mutual growth, not just as assets to be leveraged on your climb. Value depth over breadth in your connections.
Recognize the architecture. Reject suffering as salvation. Reclaim authorship. Integrate head and heart. Choose community.
Those are the pillars derived from dismantling the deception architecture. And it all leads to one final, really powerful insight from the source material.
What's that?
Simply this. The prison is made of ideas, which means it can be torn down by better ones.
The prism is made of ideas, so the blueprint we just uncovered isn't just a diagnosis.
It's the first step towards demolition.
Yeah.
You just needed to see the bars weren't real.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. Where in your own life have you accepted that you must suffer to be worthy?
Question the narrative. Deconstruct the dogma. See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical. Thank you for joining us.